Good afternoon. Welcome to the news. My name is Remy Allen. Primary and secondary schools in Ondo State today began the 2023-2024 academic session. Osrc crew visited some schools within Akure, the Ondo State capital, and cited students in large numbers in their classes. The pupils and teachers who expressed delight to be back in school after the long holidays are optimistic of the new academic year. At Oyemekun Grammar School, over 3,000 students were in attendance, while the school principal decked its students' uniform to testify. The story is not different as in Dominic High School, as children were cited wanting to assembly line in the first half of the Meanwhile, reactions have continued to trade a plan by the Ondo State Universal Basic Education Board, SUBEB, to henceforth base the promotion of public primary school teachers on pupils' performance. Some stakeholders argued the failure of a child at a given citadel of learning at any point in time should not be blamed on tutors, as several factors come to play in determining assimilation of knowledge and academic brilliance. Omoriola Ogbiji reports that his SUBEB chairman, Victor Olabinto, however, insisted that it will no longer be business as usual for public school teachers as far as their promotion exercise is concerned. A report.
A 3-year statistical analysis of pupils' results reveals that there is a constant decline in the performance of pupils writing common entrance examination into the public schools in Ondo State. The analysis shows that pupils that scored 40% and above declined from 81% in 2021 to 76% in 2022 and 74.6% in 2023, throwing the state into an average of 3.5% annual decline. Elementary education is where children learn to read and write and also learn the fundamental concepts in science and mathematics, as well as gaining a basic understanding of the world and history. Learning at this stage requires quality training by quality teachers in preparing the pupils to confront the challenges of secondary education. Chairman, Ondo State Universal Basic Education Board, Victor Olabinto, while lamenting the decline in performance of candidates in the common entrance examination in the state annually, said adequate measures would be taken to address the decline.
We are going to sign the performance contract. It's going to be based on performance. Gone are the days where they just say every year we move all of them. Everything now will now be based on performance.
Mr. Olabinton was categorical about the penalty that awaits any teacher found wanting in terms of quality performance, said the era of automatic promotion is gone.
The government of Ondo State has invested a lot in education, particularly basic education. Government has invested. There must be a return. And what is the return? Output. What are these output? The children, the pupils that are put under them. They must be very brilliant, they must be okay, they must pass public examination, they must be doing well. Their salaries are paid as at when due. I hear some people say there is backlog of salary. Not in Ondo State. We train them in NEPA, we train them in every other place, and very soon now we are going to train another batch of 1,200 teachers.
Reacting, the Nigerian Union of Teachers, through its acting secretary, Mrs. Felicia Ogunjobi, acknowledged efforts of the state government in promoting standard of education. She, however, disagreed with the decision of SUBEB chairman to hold teachers responsible solely for pupils' poor performance in common entrance examination.
It cannot be shifted onto them because failure of a child is determined by so many factors. It might be child himself, it might be due to the environment, it might be due to teachers, it might be due to the parents and government. So it cannot be shifted to the teachers alone that maybe children are having low performances or whatever. We will still continue to do our best as teachers because we are eating from that place, and the hand that is feeding us cannot be beaten.
Chairman, Ondo State Parent Teachers Association, Abimbola Omoloja, said more teachers are needed to complement government's efforts, while parents must also rise up to their responsibility.
We don't have enough teachers, both in the primary and in the secondary schools. So the government is at fault. The teachers, they are doing their best, but they are handicapped. And the parents, to the best of my ability, I tell them, apart from the fact that most of them who are illiterate don't monitor their children.
In 2021, Ondo State government recruited 1,000 primary school teachers, coupled with renovation of school buildings across the state. As much as government is providing a conducive environment for teaching and learning, it behoves teachers to do their part in achieving the common goal of laying good academic foundation for pupils as future leaders. Omoriola Humbiji, Osrc News.
President Bola Tinubu has arrived in New York in the United States to attend the 78th United Nations General Assembly UNGA, expected to be held between today, September 18 and 26, 2023. The president was received by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuga, the permanent representative of Nigeria to the United Nations, Professor Tijani Mohammed Bande, and other government officials. The theme for this year's meeting is Rebuilding Trust and Reigniting Global Solidarity, Accelerating Action on the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals towards peace, prosperity, progress, and sustainability for all. This is Tinubu's first UNGA meeting since he was sworn in as president. According to a statement by presidential spokesman Ajuri Ngalale, the president is expected to hold bilateral meetings with various world leaders, including U.S. President Joe Biden and EU Commission President von der Leyen, on the sidelines of this summit. The president is also expected to meet with the global president of Microsoft, Brad Smith, as well as the head of global affairs for Meta Technologies, Nick Clegg. The statement said Tinubu will also deliver his inaugural national statement on the floor of the UN headquarters tomorrow, September 19, and equally address American business leaders at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and conduct the NASDAQ closing ceremony. The federal government and the leadership of the Nigerian Labour Congress are expected to meet today to resolve issues over the looming industrial action. The Director of Information, Ministry of Employment, Olajide Oshundu, who disclosed the meeting between the two parties in a statement, said the Minister of Labour and Employment, Simon Lalong, has again invited the Nigerian Labour Congress for another meeting over its planned indefinite strike. The minister said it was important that the unions sit with the government to resolve all pending matters to avert further disruption to the economy. The latest invitation by the federal government is coming days after the NLC ended its two-day warning strike after shunning an earlier meeting with the federal government to embark on the strike over increasing hardship and suffering across the country caused by the removal of fuel subsidy. Libya's top prosecutor will investigate the collapse of two dams in the eastern port of Derna that launched a fast-moving wall of water that killed thousands of people and largely destroyed the city. General Prosecutor Al-Sadiq Al-Sur said local authorities, previous governments, and the allocation of the dam's maintenance funds will be scrutinized. Also reassured citizens that whoever made mistakes or negligence will be sanctioned. The investigation was announced as rescue teams continued to search for bodies in the ravaged city nearly a week after Storm Daniel's impact on the dams that one aid official said killed more than 11,000 people. Conflicting death tolls have been reported, with officials in the east and west of the divided country giving different estimates. Meanwhile, aid organizations have warned the coming days could see the spread of disease as well as grave difficulties in delivering supplies to those in need. In a related development, schools are reopening in central Morocco 10 days after the devastating earthquake. In the hardest hit areas in the Atlas Mountains, lessons will be held in tents. People remain in makeshift camps, and the UN says the earthquake displaced more than 300,000 people, and the death toll from Friday's earthquake has risen to nearly 3,000, with thousands more injured. Recovery operations are happening in the 6 provinces affected by the earthquake. Many communities lack food, water and electricity, and shelter in villages hardest hit by the tremor. 70 people died last month in South Africa after an abandoned building caught fire. The 5-story building in Johannesburg had been taken over by homeless and vulnerable people who were forced to pay rent to criminal gangs. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the criminal groups need to be rooted out.
You know, we sometimes thought that we're gonna get affected with the diseases because of the place. I can't move because I don't have money. I'm not working anymore.
I think it's over 300,000 in terms of our backlog on housing our people. And you'd understand that at no point will arrive and say Johannesburg has resolved its backlog on housing. Precisely because every month we receive at least 18,000 people flocking into Johannesburg. 15,000 of those are probably from our provinces, all the 8 other provinces, and about 3,000 of those will be from foreign countries flocking Johannesburg with the hope of finding opportunities.
World leaders are arriving in New York for the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly on Tuesday. Many are wondering if the Assembly has the political willpower to put aside geopolitical tensions and address the needs of the world's most vulnerable areas. Kemisola Ojomo reports.
Every year, this is the time of year when world leaders come to New York and speak in the UN General Assembly. Last year, Ukraine President Zelensky addressed the gathering by video link, but this time he is attending in person. President Putin, facing an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court, is not coming and will be represented by his Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov. The UN sees no chance of meaningful discussions on ending the war, but they will work towards renewal of the deal, which allows Ukraine's grain to be exported by ship on the Black Sea. Russia pulled out of the agreement in July.
I will be receiving President Zelensky, I will be receiving President Erdogan, I will be receiving Minister Lavrov, and obviously this question will be on the table of our discussions. So I'm not going to say whether I am optimistic or pessimistic. The only thing you can be sure is that I remain determined.
The other key area of discussion this week is the Sustainable Development Goals being overseen by the Secretary General's deputy. In the garden of the UN headquarters, they have built a special pavilion to highlight the series of targets the UN agreed in 2015 to help all humanity with the slogan, "No one left behind." But those 17 goals, which are a long way from being met, the UN blames the global pandemic, inflation all around the world, and conflict and the war in Ukraine. The Deputy Secretary General said the most powerful countries in the world, the G20, which met last week in Delhi, are the ones who still need to do more with regard to funding and reform of the global system.
They absolutely need to step up. They should have done so yesterday. We are 7 years late to stepping up to the commitments made in Addis. What we see is some movement towards saying we will do that, but I think there are many frustrations, trust deficits around will that happen, will it not happen?
The UN really hopes there will be a quantum leap in the futures of the Sustainable Development Goals over the next few days, as some diplomats fear the war in Ukraine might end up overshadowing these efforts. Kemisola Jomu, Osrc News.
In the meantime, demonstrations have begun in New York ahead of this week's United Nations General Assembly. The UN meeting will feature the 5th ever Climate Ambition Summit on the sidelines. Meanwhile, climate activists are demanding more action from world leaders. Ronke Kolawole reports.
World leaders aren't the only ones converging on New York for the United Nations General Assembly. Climate activists came by the thousands from around the world to shouting the message.
Right now, the impacts of climate change on the Caribbean and other parts of the global south are absolutely devastating. And I'm here to bring attention to the impacts that our fossil fuel addiction here in the global north is having on communities like the one I come from.
There is an ongoing drought in the Horn of Africa, including Kenya and Somalia, that is putting millions at risk of severe hunger, denying children the right to food, education, and water.
The demonstration tees up the Climate Ambition Summit on Wednesday, called by the United Nations Secretary General to pressure nations to fulfill their commitment made in 2015 Paris Agreement, aimed at keeping global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius. The activists are amplifying the call of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, calling on world leaders to take concrete action to end fossil fuel usage. That message is directed particularly at US President Joe Biden. They are demanding that the US president should declare a climate emergency.
Joe Biden is the #1 oil and gas producer in the world right now. America alone is responsible for 1/3 of oil and gas expansion in the world. So we're asking President Biden to turn the tide against fossil fuels and phase out the fossil fuel era.
Some activists have gone beyond demonstrating in the run-up to the summit. 25 were arrested on Thursday for blocking entrance to the headquarters of Citibank, one of the largest financiers to fossil fuel extraction around the globe. After a summer of record settings, it as well as floods and wildfire move extreme by rising temperatures. They say government can't wait any longer to act. Adirunke Kolawole, Osrc News.
The Dominican Republic has closed its borders with Haiti because Haitian farmers are building a canal from a shared river. The country's defense and industry ministers visited the border town of Dajabon. The report is by Tamara Jujide.
The Dominican defense minister visiting the border for the first time since his country ordered it closed to neighboring Haiti. That decision was made to pressure Asian farmers to stop digging a canal on the Massacre River, which the two countries share.
En el lado dominicano hay varios proyectos, ¿no? Como usando el agua del río. ¿Por qué no podemos tener uno?
But none of those projects diverts the course of the river. This one does, and that's why it violates the treaty.
But the Asians say they are suffering from drought and have a right to irrigate their farmlands. They continue to dig despite the build-up of Dominican troops from the other side of the border. The Dominican government wants to show off what it's really doing, but at the moment, that is really all this is, a show. They can't actually do anything to stop the canal, which is on the Asian side. Neither, it seems, can the Asian government, even if it wanted to. Years of political crisis and violence have left it all but incapacitated. Even most of the capital, Port-au-Prince, is in the hands of the gangs.
We know that the Haiti government, because of the actions of the gangs, has its hands tied. But the construction of the canal affects the interest of the Dominican Republic. It affects our farmers, and it violates the Treaty of 1929. So it's up to the government to search for a solution. It's in their hands.
Meanwhile, the closed border is affecting not just Asians who depend on food for the wealthier Dominican Republic, but also traders and exporters on this side. The Dominican Industry and Commerce Minister also at the border to reassure traders promised to buy off any perishable food they can't sell.
The limit of time doesn't depend on us. It depends on Haiti. Now we hope that the talks advance and we continue to reposition our products internally.
Meanwhile, in Haiti, support to the canal is only growing. Perhaps because of Dominican opposition, it's becoming a patriotic endeavor. Flags are fluttering, busloads of people are arriving to help. Some performing voodoo rituals in support of the workers. Others like Zephai Magdali are bringing food.
We've come to support the canal being built because we are Haitians. We must cooperate among ourselves to give food to those who work at the canal.
The Dominican Republic insists that Asian businessmen and politicians are behind the project. But however it started, the canal has become very much a popular enterprise or be one that could cause economic ruin if the two countries continue their standoff. Tamara Ibijide, Osrc News.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has visited the Italian island of Lampedusa. She arrived with the Italian Prime Minister, who had invited her to see for herself the unprecedented number of refugees and migrants arriving from Africa.
I want to be very clear. We have an obligation as part of the international community. We have fulfilled it in the past and we will do so today and in the future. But we will decide who comes to the European Union and under what circumstances, and not the smugglers and traffickers.
The only way to address the problem, ensuring that the solution for one nation does not mean creating a problem for another nation, is to tackle the external dimension and stop the illegal departures of migrants.
We want the international protection because there is no peace in our country. We are here because we don't have an alternative. We crossed the sea to reach Italy, leaving our families behind. Why should we do this if we really had some peace in our country?